Question, sorry,
who cares? I mean, it's a detail. It's a detail. I spoke to him. I'll speak to him again when it matters. I look forward to speaking to the president soon, but I don't have a burning issue to speak with the president about right now.
The honourable member for North Island, Powell River.
Who cares? That's what this Prime Minister said when asked when he'd last spoken to the U.S. President about Canada's ongoing trade negotiations. The Prime Minister claimed that he had no burning issue to discuss with the United States at the moment, and that he would speak to the President again, quote, when it matters. Well, Mr. Speaker, to the over 200,000 Canadians who earn their living in forestry, who harvest our wood, whose mill our timber, who provide the lumber from which we build our homes, and whose blood, sweat, and tears built cities like Campbell River, Powell River, and Port McNeill, it matters to them. Right. And it matters to their families, and it matters to their communities, and it matters to this country. More Canadians work in forestry than steel, aluminum, and the automotive sector combined, and they are getting killed right now, especially in my home province of British Columbia. On the coast alone, harvest volumes have collapsed in half. More than 5,400 jobs have been lost. Mills have closed, others curtailed, and we're now only harvesting 1/3 of our annual allowable cut, and it could be about to get even worse. Because if just one more major mill closes, if just one more domino in the supply chain falls, the entire industry faces the very real possibility of total collapse. And there are two major reasons why. The first, this Prime Minister promised he'd have a deal with the Americans by July 21st, a deal to remove the punitive and baseless tariffs and provide some certainty for an industry eager to return to its feet. But that didn't exactly happen now, did it? Instead, American tariffs on Canadian softwood, far from being removed, have tripled under this Prime Minister, and his response, beyond some flippant comments like, who cares? Nothing. In fact, to add insult to injury, Canada, one of the most forested jurisdictions in the entire world, is now importing raw logs from the United States. Unreal. And just to remind Canadians of the backstory to all this, in 2006, the previous Conservative government signed a much celebrated softwood lumber deal with the U.S., a deal that expired in late 2015. The Liberals have had more than 10 years under 3 different U.S. presidents to renew or otherwise modify this deal, and I would say they have done nothing, except the truth is they have done worse than nothing. That's right. Which brings me to the second reason why this industry that built so much of our country is in crisis, and that's this government's reckless and arbitrary commitment to close up to 30% of Canada's lands to economic activity, including forestry, as part of the United Nations 30 by 30 policy, a policy that risks exacerbating uncertainty around permitting delays and access to fiber, and that was suffocating this industry before these latest tariffs even came into place. Mass closures that have nothing to do around permitting delays and access to fiber, and everything to do with ideology and ticking the box of bureaucrats and activists in New York. And for what? To put our industry and our workers at competitive disadvantage, to send our forestry jobs to Brazil, to Russia, to the United States, to countries with lower environmental standards than our own. This at a time when forestry in Canada and the 200,000 Canadian workers that it employs face an unprecedented existential crisis due to predatory trade action from the U.S. Every day, I see the effects of all of these policies in my riding. People out of work, families cutting back, lineups at the Comox airport with individuals desperate for work, seeking whatever they can in mines and energy projects hundreds or thousands of miles away. Young Canadians that I talk to, be it in Campbell River or Port Hardy, that see no future for forestry at all. All they see is uncertainty and a perpetual downward spiral to nothing. But it doesn't have to be this way. Canada has the best forestry workers and best forestry companies of anywhere in the world. We have an industry that can operate sustainably for generations to come, and we have a product in softwood lumber that builds our homes and is the envy of countries right around the world. There is no reason why this industry should not have a bright future of growth, success, and prosperity. But if this government does not act to secure trade access to the U.S., to diversify our markets, and to lift ideological restrictions on access to fiber, the current trend will continue. A trend of decline, of pessimism, of slowly destroying one of the foundational industries that built our incredible country. For the sake of future generations and for Canada, I urge the Liberal government to rise to the occasion and finally do what needs to be done and to deliver on what they promised.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Member for Madawaska-Restigouche.
Mr. Speaker, we've launched the Buy Canada policy because we want to be our own best clients through investments like Build Canada Homes and national interest projects. We're going to be investing in infrastructure, and these projects will allow us to focus on Canadian softwood. We'll build our country with our own resources. Does my colleague agree with me that it's important for our government to strengthen domestic demand for softwood so we can reduce our exposure to the volatile U.S. market? Does he see this as a positive factor to stimulate the domestic softwood lumber market?
Powell River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While, of course, it would always be great to boost some domestic demand for softwood lumber, that is not the problem. This is an export industry. 90% of Canada's softwood exports go to the United States. That cannot be replaced with domestic demand. We can build all the homes that we want, and we're all in favor of building homes here on the opposition side of the aisle. But if we do not fix the issues with access to trade markets and access to the United States, this industry will collapse, and it's collapsing right before our eyes. And in the process, while we're securing that access, how about the government actually gets out of the way and removes these ideological access to fiber that their 30 by 30 United Nations commitment is currently doing?